Chapter 7. The Meeting. While exiting the main part of the arena building where the circus was being held, Cheryl and the spies were stopped by a man. "Mr. Bond, Mr. Siletti, Ms. Johnson, the name's Stanford. I work for Mr. Smithworks. He's asked for a personal meeting with the three of you." "Has he now? Well, since when does this guy want to play nice now? For as long as we've known, this guy has wanted to hurt Mr. Bond. Let me guess, he wants to have this meeting so he can just sit Mr. Bond down, pull out a gun, and shoot him right there. Mr. Siletti, just a minute," Stanford said, trying to explain.
"Yeah, cool it, Daniel,"
Cheryl spoke up. "I've faced far worse than you. You don't seem so tough." Stanford then stepped closer to the trio. "Now look, we're trying to be professional about this. Come and no one will be hurt. Not yet, anyway." "Aha! There it is! James, Cheryl, let's move!" 00 Siletti pushed Bond and Cheryl in the opposite direction, away from Stanford. Stanford then put a hand to his ear and alerted some of Smithworks' men to jump into action. The spies rounded the outer area of the arena. They passed by vendors and food stands, all trying to get by crowds of people. As they were going past a stairwell that led to a higher seating level, a woman was wearing a costume that seemed to be of an older style. She was talking on the phone. As they ran by, Bond and 00 Siletti both got a glimpse. The woman winked. "James, I think that was Sandra, Smithworks' wife." Before Bond could answer, a gunshot was heard, and 00 Siletti went down. However, he got right back up. He was wearing the bulletproof jacket from Q. He, Bond, and Cheryl ducked behind some vendors' tables and returned fire. Bullets raced by. 00 Siletti tossed Cheryl his Walther. "Cheryl, cover me!" She caught the gun and began to fire. 00 Siletti tried to aim his poison dart Rolex, but couldn't get a clear shot. It was then Stanford came from behind 00 Siletti and grabbed his jacket. The junior spy wiggled out of it and ran over to Bond, but Sandra was already standing there with a gun to his head. A maniacal laugh then started to be heard as Smithworks came over with Cheryl in tow. "Mr. Bond, James Bond, we meet at last. Join me, shall you?" Smithworks led all the people outside the arena to a hotel across the street. He cleverly hid the guns and brought everyone up to a guest suite he was staying at. Stanford and Sandra plopped Bond and 00 Siletti into chairs as Cheryl was thrown into a corner. "So, I imagine you have many questions for me," Smithworks asked. "Well, it did cross my mind why you would go after someone like James Bond, 007. But then it came to me. You must be certifiable," 00 Siletti remarked. "Listen, I'm not exactly sure who you are, but you can't be good. You're just something that's getting in the way. Is this your trick, Bond? Getting children into your reign of terror now?" "A reign? I was not aware that it was storming." Smithworks walked around them. He then snapped at Stanford to bring them something to drink. Stanford went over to a minibar and brought over 2 drinks. One was a martini, shaken, not stirred. The other was not the beverage that 00 Siletti was expecting. When Bond is served a martini, 00 Siletti is usually handed a regular milk. In this case, he was handed a mug of hot chocolate. "The weather's getting colder. Now be a good little boy and drink your hot cocoa. So, Bond, ask away." "Do you always allow your victims the courtesy of getting to know you before you kill them?" "No, Mr. Bond, I don't. Only you. You see, what I want to know is why. What gives you the right to kill those who are trying to change the world for the better? What do you think is your privilege to get rid of those trying to improve things?"
"Mr. Bond is stopping those from harming the world. We know about your admiration for those who crossed his path. Many have tried, but all pay the price, sometimes by their own hand. For example, this Max Zorn, who you admire so much, his blimp was blown up by an associate of his, not Bond." Cheryl spoke up from the corner she was in. Smithworks walked over to her and rubbed his hand against her face. "Little young for you, Mr. Bond. Perhaps more for your sidekick there." "That's partner, not sidekick," 00 Siletti said back. Smithworks then backed off from Cheryl and started towards the suite door. "Get out, Bond. Take your compatriots with you. We haven't crossed paths for the last time." A worker of Smithworks motioned the spies and Cheryl to get up and walk out the door. Before leaving, Sandra came over to Bond's side. "There's one thing I have been wanting to do since Harrison started this fascination with you."
She leaned in and kissed him. Smithworks then pulled her away. "Darling, please!" "One last thing, Bond. Are you a fan of fox hunts?" Oh, well, that depends on what type of foxes we're hunting. Bond smiled, looking back at Sandra. Smithworks handed Bond and 007 their weapons. They all exited the door as Smithworks started planning his next move.